Hello and welcome to the show. You're with me, Shahim Durangpati. Today we'll be speaking about cricket, which is considered a religion here in Sri Lanka. Now, we won the 2020 World Cup, which was staged in Bangladesh just this year, and in 2011 we came to the finals and just missed out. Now what we're hoping for is another final or the championship at most in 2015. So now today on the show we have the CEO of the ICC World Cup in 2015, which is to be held in Australia and New Zealand, Mr. John Hunn. Hello, sir. Thank you very much for speaking to us. First of all, what is the purpose of your visit to Sri Lanka?
Well, our visit to Sri Lanka is really about, I suppose, promoting the World Cup. It's one of the world's biggest events. In fact, it's cricket's pinnacle event. It is the tournament that everyone wants to win. As you said, cricket is like a religion here in Sri Lanka. And so for us, it's talking about the World Cup and trying to get people to come to Australia and New Zealand to be part of it, but probably most importantly to see how we can match up businesses, to get businesses in Sri Lanka to match up with businesses in Australia and New Zealand about trade and investment.
So is this part of a worldwide tour that you all are currently undertaking?
Well, at the moment it's part of a tour of the subcontinent, and we've been doing different tours around the world and going to all the countries that are involved. And again, just talking about the World Cup, everywhere we go, you just see people getting excited, and we've got the trophy here, which itself is something really special. And when people see that, their minds start to go forward. In 35 weeks, the eyes of the world will be on Australia and New Zealand as all the teams fight it out to be number one.
Now, is this an aim at boosting tourism, if you don't mind me asking?
Yes, certainly. Whether it's the Cricket World Cup or any event, tourism and the business behind an event is really important. The Cricket World Cup, from a global audience perspective, only ranks behind the FIFA World Cup and the Summer Olympics. And when you look from a tourism side, we're expecting tens and tens of thousands of international tourists to come to Australia and New Zealand and bring the economic benefits that come with that. Whether it's a World Cup, an Olympics or the like, that's what these big events are about.
Now, Sri Lanka hosted the World Cup in 2011 alongside India and Bangladesh. Now, there were several allegations regarding the playing conditions, its pitches and grounds. Do you expect, are these allegations substantiated allegations on your personal opinion?
Well, I think on any given day you play on the conditions and the field that's there, and it's the same for everybody. My recollection of the 2011 World Cup, it was very, very much about the fans and the teams and the excitement and all the colour and movement. Whichever tournament, whenever it happens, there are always people that say, well, has the pitches been prepared to suit the home teams? It's been going on forever within cricket. Certainly from our side, with the World Cup next year, we've got a real focus on being impartial, to make certain that the grounds, the pitches, that it's fair for everyone and we have a fair contest between bat and ball.
How are the preparations coming along for the 2015 World Cup?
It's good, 35 weeks to go. It's a bit like a marathon. You start a couple of years out, putting everyone together, making it all happen. But there's a lot of people working, the venues, the cricket associations, the governments. We've already got many thousands of volunteers on board that are going to come and take part in the tournament, and most importantly, tickets are on sale. And the tickets are on sale worldwide, whether it be through our website, cricketworldcup.com, or more importantly, particularly for those people in Sri Lanka, go to icctravel.com. There are lots of tourism packages, and we'd love to welcome people to come to Australia and New Zealand.
How many people, in average, are expecting over the course of the next year? Because, like I said, it is a big event. The World Cup is a big event. How many people are expecting for the next World Cup?
We're expecting tens and tens of thousands of international tourists, and on top of that, tens of thousands of interstate tourists. It's always hard to put a number on it until the event's been won and run.
So, as the head of the organising committee of the 2015 World Cup, do you think infrastructure development and everything, all these travel necessities are in place?
Yes, absolutely. One of the things we're blessed with in Australia and New Zealand is the venues are already there. While there's been some upgrades happening for the venues for the World Cup, effectively, the Melbourne Cricket Ground, the Sydney Cricket Ground, Adelaide Oval's just been redeveloped and it's finished, along with Wellington Stadium and Auckland Stadium as well in New Zealand, which were actually upgraded for the Rugby World Cup. So in a funny way, the Cricket World Cup has come along at a time where there's been all this work done on stadia across both Australia and New Zealand we're able to come along afterwards and actually capitalise on that. And so for us, it's how do we bring the tournament alive in every city. So whether it's in Melbourne or in Adelaide or in Wellington, we've got great venues. They operate really well, every summer for cricket. So how do we bring those cities alive with all the fans? And it's very much about a home game for every single team. So for Sri Lanka playing in Australia and New Zealand, we want them to feel that every game they play in is like a home game with all of that blue and yellow out there to feel like they've got that homegrown support.
Now, Mr. Harnden, a problem that plagued Sri Lanka in 2011 in the World Cup was the cost hosting the tournament, a cost which was not compensated, of course, in revenue. Do you expect to face similar problems in 2015 for the World Cup?
We've got a financial model that we put in place 3 years ago, and we're working towards that. So as things stand at the moment, we're from a financial side, we're running in accordance with our budgets and our projections. Obviously still a long way to go, but we're very, very confident, and already to date, with ticket sales, we've had strong ticket sales, so we're very confident.
Now, so far you've spoken about the preparation in Australia. How is it in New Zealand? What are the venues that you are mainly targeting?
We've got 7 venues in New Zealand, the same as Australia, and it really is a partnership of sharing the tournament between the two countries, and in fact the two countries being seen as one. And I do think that was very successfully done at the last World Cup, where Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and India jointly hosted the World Cup. As someone watching from Australia, certainly you saw these countries working together. So New Zealand, we've got 7 venues, again across the breadth of the country, 4 venues in the North Island, 3 venues in the South Island. So we've had enormous buy-in, and cricket in New Zealand is an incredibly popular sport. It's New Zealand's most popular summer sport. There's an incredible passion. People love their cricket, and so no different than in Australia, we're expecting the tournament will be a big success in both countries.
On the 2015 World Cup will be held under the new administrative structure of the ICC. I'm pretty sure you're aware of that. How do you think this will affect the tournament?
Well, for us, we've been working for a long time on the tournament and been working very, very closely with the ICC, putting all our plans, our strategies in place, putting our plans in place. From our side, we've agreed a lot of things, so we see it as business as usual. We'll continue to work closely with the ICC, but to date, even with the changes in structure and administration, that hasn't affected our planning. Indeed, we just work with those people we're involved with and get on with it.
Well, Mr. Harden, we'll cross over for a short commercial break. We'll have more questions to you after the break. Hello, welcome back. We are with the CEO of the 2015 ICC World Cup, which is to be played in Australia and New Zealand, Mr. John Harden. My next question is now moving away from the tournament. We recently saw Sri Lankan spinner Sachitra Senanayake being reported for a suspected bowling action. Now, we as Sri Lankans would want to know what your opinion is on this.
Well, again, it's one of those difficult topics. There's always debate on with bowlers' actions as to whether it is legal or not. Ultimately, the ICC have very sophisticated techniques and tests to do that. And so, realistically, for whether it's in Australia or for all the fans in Sri Lanka, it's a case of the particular player going through the various tests, having that analysed, and then ultimately it'll be proven as to whether his bowling action is okay or not. And people can draw confidence from that there is a lot of work and thought that goes into that. It's not just someone coming up with a fast-formed opinion, that there's a lot of science behind it, and I think that's important for the game as well as the players themselves.
Now, Sri Lanka is taking on England in their series there. If you watch the 4th ODI between Sri Lanka and England, there was a controversial run-out which has been under much scrutiny, with Sachitra Senanayake dismissing Josh Butler for leaving his crease just before delivering the ball. Now, many factions are saying that the incident is in contravention of the spirit of the game. What are your thoughts on the incident? Is it in contravention of the spirit of the game?
Well, obviously it's within the rules of the game, and while I haven't seen the incident myself, I understand that the players, they were warned at the time. And again, I suppose as to whether someone was trying to get an unfair advantage or not. Again, it's probably one of those aspects of the rules that has been very hotly contested and debated, over the years. And I suppose if you're on the side that's winning, you have one point of view, and if you're on the side the side that's losing, and on the other side of the decision you have another point of view. That's sport.
It's all about doing whatever it takes to win.
Well, and that's why people love sport, because of the unpredictability, and it's about what happens on the day, and it's about emotion.
When people talk about cricket in Australia and New Zealand, many fans have high expectations, very, very high expectations in terms of technology, their grounds, the beauty of the ground, for example, the MCG. Do you think it will be up to that expectation of the fans?
Absolutely. Our job is, we've got great venues, they're there in place, we've got beautiful scenery, particularly in New Zealand. Some of the smaller venues in New Zealand are very, very picturesque. I mean, the world has seen a lot of New Zealand through the Lord of the Rings franchises and the like, so that can absolutely be taken for granted. The bit that we want to make certain we get right, and we're working really closely with all the cities and the governments, is how you bring the city alive, how you make certain that all those fans really feel alive and have a great time. And so that's about that nationalistic pride. As I said earlier, about every match being a home match for a team. People coming, supporting their teams, people coming dressed up, having their faces painted, having the flags, colour and movement. Quite often that's as much of a part of the entertainment and being there in a big crowd that's passionate as actually the sport on the oval itself.
Now, the 2015 World Cup will feature teams who have been dubbed as minnows or underdogs, like for example the Netherlands, Ireland, and recently Afghanistan, who created many upsets actually. Do you think we can see the same, which many of us are expecting to see, of course, in the 2015 World Cup?
Absolutely. There's the World Cup history is littered with all sorts of the David versus Goliath, of the minnow beating the big fish. Some of the big name, well-credentialed teams in the past have been knocked out of the World Cup. So I'm sure we'll see the same. Ireland, Afghanistan in particular, have had a rapid rise in the quality of their cricket and their world rankings, and I'm sure they are going to give a few teams a hard time, perhaps a few scares, or perhaps a few upset victories. So we'll wait and see, but that's the one thing people can guarantee. And it doesn't matter whether it's a Cricket World Cup or any of these big world sporting events, you often see the underdog take on the expected, and people have got nothing to lose, and that quite often brings out the best in teams.
Well, as a fellow Australian, let me ask you, now Sri Lanka has been in the finals for the past 2 consecutive World Cups. I'm pretty sure all countries are eyeing to defeat them during the first round itself. What do you think the Australians what is their plan, what do you see them doing?
I think Australia is very focused on making certain they've got the right team and the right squad of players. Now, after all, the World Cup does go for 6 weeks. If you're going to win the World Cup, you need to play 9 games within that period. So it's a case of making certain that against all the different teams, that you have that versatility in your squad. So again, whether it's in Australia or when you read all the media clippings from around the world, you can actually see that's the thing all the teams are focused on. For Australia, there's obviously the pressure of expectation, no different for New Zealand. While on one hand, it's in their home country, and people might say that gives an advantage from the home crowds. On the flip side, you've got the weight of expectation. Time will tell, but I also think you'll see some of the underdogs and teams like Sri Lanka and the others.
And now moving back to my question about the minnows and underdogs like Afghanistan, Netherlands and Ireland. Now, what measures are being done to recognize and promote these players to enable them to ascend further in the sport, because they obviously do need it to get a test ranking, because that is the most important thing in cricket, to get into the test rankings. So what do you think is being done to recognize these teams?
Well, the first thing obviously is the qualification process with the ICC Pepsi League, where these teams do get to play regular international cricket. Then later this year, in Australia and New Zealand, the ICC is working with those 4 small teams that qualified to come out to Australia and New Zealand to play and have camps. And there's also plans underway that next year in January and February, that those teams again will probably, because they don't have as busy international schedules as the other teams, for them to come out, to have training camps and to get a bit of expertise and help to make certain that they're absolutely at their peak, ready to play. Now, clearly for themselves as well, just the World Cup playing in that World Cup, no different than when some of them played in the recent T20 World Cup in Bangladesh. To get to play against the best players in the world, that's the ultimate learning ground, the ultimate proving ground, where you're up against the best and you find out where you need to get to. So there'll be a range of those things, but I can assure you that all of those small teams, this is their big chance. They take it very, very seriously, and they don't want to be there to make up the numbers. They want to be there and be a force to be reckoned with.
Now, when are the qualification stages going to commence for the World Cup for these teams? Like, obviously, they have to go through a qualification process to get into the squad, to the draw, rather.
So that all finished earlier this year. The last two teams qualified in Scotland and the UAE. Mm-hmm. They joined Ireland and also Afghanistan, who'd qualified later the year before. So the 4 qualifiers are in place. All of the fixture has been finalised. So if you go onto the website, everyone can see every one of the 42 pool games, who's playing who, where, when, and that. So I would encourage people to go have a look and start planning your World Cup experience.
Now, Mr. Harnden, when organising a World Cup, you do look at the previous World Cups which are hosted in different countries, and obviously you'll take the good and the bad and consider them. So what are the goods and the bads you all have considered in taking in and putting out for the next World Cup?
I think one of the great things to me about the last World Cup, across Bangladesh, India and Sri Lanka, was the passion and the fans and the colour and the movement. That to me, as watching from afar and watching it on television and through the media, to me was just a great highlight. Probably one of the challenges that came out, I know, for those involved in organising was 13 venues across 3 countries, and so for us going into the World Cup, that was probably one of the great learnings, was to make certain that even though we were only playing in 2 countries, that we didn't underestimate the logistics of the travel and the hotels and all of that. Even though we're spread over 2 countries, that to me was the piece that I took out of the last World Cup to make certain that we built on the great success.
Well, Mr. Harden, we'll cross over for another short commercial break. We'll be right back. Hello, welcome back to the show. Mr. Harden, now you previously served as the Chief Executive of the 2006 Commonwealth Games and the Australian Grand Prix Corporation. What will you draw on from your experience in organising these events that could help in organising the 2015 Cricket World Cup?
Well, it's funny. I mean, you work on a range of events and been very fortunate to work not only on events but sports that I'm very passionate about. And to me, what they all have in common is it's about that passion, it's about the fans, about people want to come, they want that emotional engagement, they want that excitement, they want to see and get close and personal to their heroes, and they want to see them win, and they want to feel that joy when they win, and they want to feel a bit of that sorrow or that pain when they don't quite get there. So to me, over many events, it's about the fans, and every event you get involved in, you just see that if you go about and get all the organisation in right, but get the fans involved, make it affordable and accessible from a ticket price point of view, and if you go and talk to all the various organisations and go out in the media and talk to people about it and build up the heroes and the personalities, that's ultimately the great thing about being involved. But secondly, that's what I think actually brings about success as well. And it takes a lot of things to put on a major event and make it a success. It's not about one single person, it's not about one single thing, but it's about how all those things come together and everyone pulling in the same direction to make it I suppose that outcome that we're looking for.
You said building up heroes. Now, obviously, when you say World Cup and when you say a whole lot of international players are coming to your country, kids obviously want to get up close. So are there any programs in place, as a social in Australia and New Zealand, to meet kids and carry out these programs?
Yes, we're looking at doing a lot with all the teams, and in each of the cities is having celebrations for the teams and making certain that the fans can get close, and we'll be announcing some of those details as we get closer. Clearly we're very mindful of the players and their busy workloads with playing and training, but I know when you talk to the players, quite often their highlights of their time in playing the sport and going to World Cups is about interacting with the fans and just seeing that passion I was talking about earlier. So it's a big part of our plans, and I'm sure that there's going to be lots of kids all running around with their favourite players, playing top on with signatures on it or the like. I mean, I still have great memories myself, running around Adelaide Oval and getting players' signatures. That's what it's all about.
When hosting such a big event with several nations, you bear responsibility for these players. Surely you've been like the government of the host nation coordinates with the other governments. So how is this procedure coming along?
Again, putting these events on, it's about a team, it's a group of people. So we're working really closely with both the Australian government and the New Zealand government, and then below that we've got 7 state or territory governments in Australia and 7 regional councils, effectively governments in New Zealand. So that's 16 different organisations that we're working together with as one, to make certain that on one hand we've got what happens in the stadium, but things like security, transport and the like, that all the expertise in Australia and New Zealand put on the most successful Rugby World Cup, indeed one of the world's great events in 2011. In Australia we've had a number of very successful events, the Olympics, Commonwealth Games and a range of other things, the Grand Prix, the Australian Open. So it's actually making certain that we don't try and reinvent the wheel, that we take the experience that's there and we get all the people that know what they're doing involved and just seamlessly work together. So it's a big part of our plans and we're pretty on track at the moment.
Well, let's say you're a major salesman. How would you advertise the World Cup 2015 in just 3 lines?
The world's best in one place, don't miss it.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Harden, for joining Newsfirst. It is a pleasure having you. Hope you have a wonderful time here in Sri Lanka.
Thank you very much.